In real estate, the sentiment and vibe of the summer tends to be an extension for how things went in the spring. I've mentioned it in previous videos, but in Toronto real estate, the market naturally slows down over the summer as a lot of attention, it shifts away from real estate and onto things like meeting up with friends, traveling, and enjoying the precious 3 months of summer. As such, listings get fewer showings and homes take longer to sell. But market expectations tend to follow the spring trend for both buyers and sellers. When the spring is active with homes selling quickly at high prices, buyers tend to continue to make strong offers in the summer. This spring, we did not have any of that. Homes took longer to sell, few homes were getting offers, and average prices fell deeper into the spring market that we went. And so this summer, the trend has in many ways continued. Buyers are largely missing in action, and it feels like home prices are continuing their descent. Last video, I talked about the concept of best alternative to negotiated agreement and making your home a rare offering in order to get it sold. Well, sellers who are receiving offers, even if they're low, they don't have a lot of better alternatives, and the potential for fall prices to be lower than what they are today is freaking them out. So some sellers are taking the bird in the hand. In this summer market, value is not just what a buyer is willing to pay, but also how low a seller is willing to accept for a deal to get done. Moving on to market performance. Okay, in last month's video, I said I expect Toronto sales to be down year over year for the month of June. And I was right, but not universally right. In Toronto's 416, freehold sales are down year over year or neutral at best. And that's what I'm actively experiencing in my market here in Etobicoke, where I primarily sell real estate. Sales seem to be harder to come by. There is some interest in real estate, some tire kickers, but few intentional buyers. However, across the GTA, sales are actually up year over year for the month of June. And most of it was primarily seen in the 905, where sales of every type of property is up, some by a substantial amount. Detached sales are up a whopping 12.3% in the 905. Semi-detached are up 8.4%, and townhouses were up 5.8%. And condos in both the 905 and Toronto's 416 also saw a substantial pickup year over year, with sales up 14.3% in both areas. This market has become increasingly more difficult to navigate and advise in. It's unpredictable, and while a seller and buyer can have a set budget that they are attempting to transact in, nothing is guaranteed. It feels like there are sellers and buyers playing a game of chicken, with some sellers holding strong on their price as their BATNA, or best alternative to negotiated agreement, is to wait out until the market cycle resets in the fall, while on the other side, buyers also have high BATNA as the market has rewarded buyers who have waited out the market with lower prices. And so the rest of this video will be dedicated to sales specifically in Etobicoke, again, the area that I mostly sell real estate, that have happened in the last 30 days or so that I found comment-worthy. Some sales which were great deals, rare offerings, and some that sold at a high, comment-worthy price for this market. We'll go low to high. All right, so the first home that we're going to be reviewing together today is 193 KingsView Boulevard. This is a detached, it's listed as a 1.5 story home, but it's more of a bungalow or maybe a side split. And this sold July 15th. Where is the sale date? July 15th, 2026. For $770. And to me, this is remarkable because this is a very decent house, and it was listed well under $1 million, and it sold quite a bit under that, a full 10%. I haven't seen a sale for a home that is in livable condition, that's fully detached, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms in this price point in a while. But in some ways, I kind of understand it. So, very quickly, we'll go through the photos. You can see this is the house from the exterior. It's a little bit dated on the interior. You can even see with this turquoise-looking shag. And inside, it's got the original hardwood. It's a little worn. This is virtually updated here. You can see it's got these old curtains, this old dated wallpaper. The kitchen was probably updated maybe 30 30 years ago, probably sometime in the 90s. Just skim through these really quickly. You know, I mean, the home is old. Like, these are original doors, original hardwood, original trim. It's got old 60s, 70s style shag and wallpaper. But, I mean, it's very livable. You rip out the carpets, maybe repaint the walls, repaint the trim, take off the wallpaper. And this is a home that most people could live in for, you know, a while. It's not a beautiful home, but, you know, it's livable. And it would probably be comfortable. The home was being sold in as-is condition, and you know, I don't know exactly what that means. You'd probably have to do a home inspection. There could have been, say, wet spots in the foundation. Could have had some old wiring. There could have been some stigmas attached to the property. Maybe there was an unnatural death that had been attached to the property. But overall, I mean, I'm just looking at this in terms of value for money, and a detached house under 800,000. It's you don't see very often in Etobicoke. And you know, you look at this backyard, it's got a very nice, very decent looking backyard. Overall, the house looks like it had been maintained over its ownership period, and you know, that's the house. And so looking at location, you kind of look at it, and it's in this wedge here right around Dixon and Kipling. It's right across the street right here. These are actually townhouse rentals. And then you can see, so the house is right here, 193. You can see these are these townhouse rentals. And over here, you also have this apartment building as well. And with respect to kind of location, I mean, it's not in the best location-wise with respect to the airport. This is kind of right below a major flight path. You can see the flight lines going into Pearson Airport. They predominantly run east-west. So you're going to hear kind of airplane noise here very frequently. And that just kind of is what it is. And so, I mean, in many ways, I understand why it was priced aggressively, and why they probably it didn't sell as well as potentially maybe it could have. Partially because, you know, a lot of the market right now, they are end users that are looking for quote unquote move-in ready homes that don't need any work. From this perspective, I mean, I've lived in, I still have memories of living in student housing, of my first basement rental apartment, and this far surpasses those. But, you know, a lot of people, they've been saving up for years, have built up this idea of home ownership in their mind as this beautiful and wonderful thing, and they're looking for kind of a dream home. And this home you would need a bit of elbow grease at the minimum, probably refinishing the floors, ripping out this wallpaper, repainting the walls. That this home does not immediately appeal to, and location-wise being underneath that flight path. But again, I mean, you don't see value like this, so that's why I think this is comment-worthy, it's noteworthy, and I think that it's just really good value for this market. So that's property number one. Okay, property number two is 98 Elma. It's a detached bungalow, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a cozy little home, built 1922, and this sold July 8th for $795. It was listed at $799,000. It had an offer date listed at $799. It did not sell on its offer date, and in the remarks, the brokerage remarks, it said, you know, offer date was still for some time in June, and then ultimately it sold for $795. And so I think this is pretty noteworthy because this is a decent sized home. This is a cozy little home, but it's also in a really great area. And you don't see a lot of homes sell within this price range that are livable, that are move-in ready, that are this is actually a little bit bigger than the average home in the area that's also 2 bedrooms, that are of this type, selling under 800, and it's just noteworthy to me in that respect. So what I like about this area that it's in this area of Mimico, just to the east of New Toronto, which is this area here. And in between Dwight and Royal York, really great location-wise. Obviously, you're walkable to the lake. You're also walkable to grocery. You got no frills here. You're walkable to the GO station. And overall, I mean, this stretch here, it is a residential neighborhood. You can see, fully residential. but there's just so much within walking distance. All these shops along Lakeshore, the lake, biking paths. So this is kind of just another stretch of Lakeshore in Mimico, and really beautiful area. And I think that you don't see a lot of like nice sort of starter homes under 800,000 that are fully detached. And you look at this house; it was beautifully staged. It had nice character with this old style traditional trim. You'll go into the kitchen and you'll see that it's actually been extended. So this area right here was likely an extension, I'm pretty sure, even though this kitchen looks, quite dated. It was probably extended a good, 50 years ago, just to add a bit more space. And so you have this living area and kitchen into what traditionally were like under 800 square foot bungalows. And so this one was probably closer to 1,000 square feet. And you'll see with the aerial drone footage, how much extra space that actually yields. And so one thing that I do remark, I didn't visit this property myself, but there are no photos of the basement, which to me kind of suggests that, that probably it was not a great basement. It could have had low ceiling height, or it could have had some wet spots in the foundation. I mean, the home was over 100 years old. And so that could have been one of the big things that was deterring buyers from this home. But it is on a decent sized lot. I mean, only 5 years ago, lots of this size were selling close to $1 million. And basically, to me, this home retains just its land value. And then you got the home on top of it for basically for free. And so we'll go over some of these other drone footage just to kind of show you with respect to everything. So this is the home right here. Maybe that's not the best one. This is the home right here. And so you can see it's actually a little bit longer than this bungalow here and this bungalow here. And this bungalow was also likely extended at some point. And so you probably have an extra 4 or 5 footage of space here. And I'm pretty sure that the reason that this did not sell as well as it could is that it just kind of didn't tick off enough boxes for home buyers. It didn't have any driveway. It did have a laneway here, but these homes were built over 100 years ago when cars were much smaller, so this laneway is effectively unusable. And so you'd have to get street parking. It didn't have a garage. Probably had a basement that needed quite a bit of work. And so, it sold low. It sold what I feel like was a low price. But this would have been a great starter home for someone to get into. And this is another instance where I think offer dates, they can be very effective. But sometimes in a market where a home doesn't tick off every single box for the majority of buyers, it can flop, and that's essentially probably what happened here. The offer date flopped, and the best offer that came forward was $795, which the seller, maybe in their best alternatives, was to just sell it and accept that offer. And so that's 98 Elma. Okay, so the next property that I'm going to go through with you guys is 226 Martin Grove Road, and this is comment-worthy to me just as a warning to heed anytime you have any plans to do with real estate and renovation or rebuilding a property. So this is vacant land that sold for $850,000. This sold June 20th, and the crazy thing is that this was purchased only about a year and a half ago for about $1.2 million, but as a 1175, January 15th, 2025, but it was purchased as a detached 1.5 story home. And so you go through these photos here, old home, but livable. Just quickly skim through these. It was likely an estate sale, probably in the same family for a while. And it was on a very good 50 by 150 foot lot. And it first came onto the market again as vacant land. So it sold January 15th. It transferred, basically closed April 15th last year. And then it was again listed in December 2025 for 1.25 million as vacant land. And then eventually they dropped the price. And, so don't know the circumstances again with the seller, but you can guess that something basically didn't go according to plan. Something happened with them, and maybe they couldn't afford to do the build anymore. Maybe there was a job loss. Maybe they realized that building this property was going to be very expensive to do. And the crazy thing is that they whatever happened, they discovered this after they had demolished the original structure. And right now we're in a market where people are not actively building because the cost to build is very expensive. And a lot of people, they cannot finance a build to do that. So right now the market is predominantly filled with end users that are seeking properties for themselves to live in. And them having demolished the original structure that was on here basically eliminated the potential buyer pool for almost every type of buyer that's out there that would have considered this property. And instead, they could only attract builders or investors who were looking for a deal. And so this is kind of just a little bit of warning to heed that if you're ever planning on doing any sort of work to your home, even if it's just a minor renovation, to do the demolition and the demolition of the work, that should be the very last thing that you do if you can avoid doing it. So basically have all your ducks lined up in a row, have the permits ready, have the quotes all done, and then demolish. Because usually demolishing is actually one of the cheapest costs to the job. So it should always be one of the last things that you do. And this is a very costly lesson for these sellers for them to find out, because had they had kept the original structure, they probably could have sold. They probably wouldn't have sold for the same price that they had purchased in, but they would have sold for over $1 million. And that's a very expensive lesson. So this is a common worthy sale for that reason. All right, so the next home I'm going to go through with you guys is 61 Yorkview Drive. And this is a detached 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom bungalow on a 41 by 133 foot lot that sold in June 23rd. And it's located right around Islington and the Queensway. This is Islington here, the Queensway. And the reason that I think this is noteworthy is because I feel like this was an overpay for this market, that the buyer paid a pretty high price for this home. And, we'll go through this house. It's a pretty modest looking bungalow, pretty standard. You can see this is an old garage door, probably from the 60s or the 70s. It's clean inside, but it's got, original door, original strip flooring. We'll go into the kitchen. They put on new handles here, but these cabinets look pretty much like they're the original cabinets. They put on some new vinyl flooring here. There's nothing that's particularly remarkable about this property. I mean, you can even see there's not even a hood range over top of the stove. And in fact, it doesn't have that, but it's a modest looking starter home, and yet it's still sold for 1.2. It's got this little extended covered deck off the back. Yeah, very basic, and when you look at the sales history for this pocket here, there are a number of other kind of starter homes that sold right around $1 million or $1.05 million or so. But the most recent sale on this street was this home on Yorkview, 44 Yorkview Drive. And so first I'm going to show you some of these other starter homes that sold recently. Ambleside, 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom. This sold in February, 1.5 story. To me, this is a comparable or equivalent home. So that's one example here. Another example is this one, 79 Edgecroft. This one sold in January, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. One caveat with this one is that it was actually beside a construction site where they were building new triplexes. And so this one sold a hair over $1 million, had a more modern kitchen, but flooring that was more dated. And then there was also this one on chart, I think it was on Edgecroft as well. 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, sold for $1,055,000. Also pretty dated. The wallpaper probably a bit more of a turnoff. And then this one on Yorkview. I mean, this one here was actually a bit more unique because it had this again 41 by 133 foot lot. This one had this garage space to the rear that they had basically turned into like an accessory structure. So I'm just gonna skip. The main house is kind of not that remarkable. Maybe a bit more updated than the other one on Yorkview that I'm explaining. But this one, it had this garage. So this was a garage space that they basically turned into an additional living area where it had this bar, this entertainment space, and basically it had become an accessory structure, which made it pretty unique. And it also had this above ground pool here as well. So, I mean, this one, I'd say it's not quite comparable to these other homes, 79 Edgecroft, 88 Edgecroft, or that other one on Ambleside that sold. And so most likely this one had sold, let's see, this one sold March 20th. And most likely within the offer date that had happened here, 999, the sellers for this home referenced 44 Yorkview and said, well, listen, that one on Yorkview was the last one that sold on the street, and it sold for 1.2. And they said, if you want it, then you gotta, beat that. And so probably that's what happened. But it's just surprising that, this is not a particularly remarkable home. Another one will pop up that's, similar to it. You can see like a lot of them have already sold in the last 6 months, and yet the buyer was willing to pay that. And to me, that is comment worthy because I guess, at the end of the day, a lot of buyers are looking for deals for sure. Well, actually, the majority of buyers are just not even involved in the market at all. But there is a subset of buyers out there, and I've had this happen with my listings as well, where they see something and they really want it, and they will pay the price that the seller is asking for it. So it's a very, very small portion of buyers out there, but they do exist. And from the listing side, a lot of sellers are hoping that buyer will come to their home, but that is far more the exception than the rule. And so you're kind of, if you get very, very lucky in this market, you will come across those buyers, but more often than not, they aren't that. And so the seller here got very fortunate, and that's ultimately what happened. And so that's why I think 61 Yorkview is noteworthy, comment worthy. All right, so the next home that I think is very comment worthy is 15 Wareside. So this sold July 7th for $1,375,000. And this is a side split house with no garage. Very pretty, beautiful looking home, nice renovation. I mean, it's got nice curb appeal from the outside as well. You got this beautiful tree here. This frontage of the home, which has been refaced, and you go inside and you can also see that it's been updated very tastefully as well. You got this sort of open concept style kitchen here with the island, and then a walkout right off the back, open to the dining area and as well as the living area. And let's go and out the backyard. It's also, oh, we're going to skip over that part. You go up the side here. You got the bedrooms upstairs. Nice. 3 bedrooms. Updated bathroom. Laundry. And then down here into the lower level, you have like a guest living bedroom and yeah, a nice cozy little home. No, to me, this is very noteworthy. First off, because this is a side split home. These side split homes are actually smaller than a standard bungalow because it's actually missing the basement part of this section of the house. Instead, what you have is a crawl space. So, you essentially have a little bit of storage space underneath this floor. And then this part of the house is the basement. But, on a standard bungalow, if you could imagine it, this part would be raised higher to match this portion of the home. There'd be some steps going into the house, and then the entire basement area would be living space. And so this is actually smaller than a standard bungalow. Still a beautiful renovation. This house also does not have a garage. And a lot of homes in this area are selling for, capping out around 1.2 million. And the most recent comparable for this house was actually right across the street. It was 16 Wareside. Similar side split. To me, this house was also renovated. And this sold in March 3rd for 1.22 million. Sold right around 1.2 million. And this house, on paper is actually probably, it's got a garage here. It's probably a little bit more superior than the other sale. You got the garage here. The other one was faced a bit, maybe, it's all subjective, but faced maybe a little bit nicer. But this one had also been completely renovated. And they had also made that open concept sort of layout. Similarly, let's just go kind of bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and then we'll, updated bathrooms as well. And we'll jump down into the basement. And so this one on paper is a superior home to 15 Wareside. And yet this one sold in July for over $150,000 more than what 16 Wareside, the comparable property across the street, sold for. And I just can't justify it in this market. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. On paper, it's got a slightly smaller lot, 50 by 110 compared to 52 foot frontage by 106. This one has the garage, and yet this one sold for over $150,000 more. And again, kind of just going back, if you get really, really lucky, you do find a buyer that really wants your property and will pay the price that they're hoping for, that the sellers are hoping for. But this is far more the exception to the current market right now than it is the rule. And it's very hard for sellers to dictate this price. I'm experiencing that actively. And it's very fascinating because I would never have guessed that this property would have sold for this price. And if I were consulting a seller, I'd say that that's very unlikely. In fact, there's another house on Wareside right now, and I also have a listing close by that are in the mid 1.2s, and offers are hard to come by. And so it's just fascinating that some buyers are. They see something that they like and they really want it, and they will pay the price in order to get it. And but again, that is the exception. And so to me, that is comment worthy in this market. That is why I chose 15 Wareside. Okay, so the next noteworthy property that I'm going to present is 287 Valermo Drive, which is a newly built semi-detached house in Alderwood that sold July 15th for $1,500,000. This is a interesting property because the other side of this newly built semi-detached actually sold in February 11th for a full $100,000 more. And it's a pretty big price difference between 1.6 and 1.5. That can be your entire profit margin in a build like this. Home was pretty nice on the inside. I'll just quickly show you. Everything's modern, everything's new. Got nice high ceilings in the kitchen. You got a living area right above the garage. That's still the kitchen. This is the living area. And upstairs, you got 3 bedrooms. And so what's crazy with this is that, you know, 289 is a exact replica of the home, just reflected onto the other side. And yet the sellers were still willing to take $100,000 less. And it really does go to show you, as per my remarks in the start of this video, that market value in this market, it's not just what a buyer is willing to pay, but also what a seller is willing to accept. And so they had been trying to sell just under 1.8 million since, let me see, since about December. Wait, let me see. It was they had listed the other side in March 2026 following the sale at 1.6. So they had listed it at the same price. But after, you know, 4 or 5 months on market of not receiving any offers, I presume, they decided to sell it at 1.5. Partially probably because they were being pushed by high interest rates and high mortgage payments, but also that they just weren't sure about what was going to be happening into the future. And so a bird in the hand is better than nothing. And so they were setting their own market value there. Next one we're going to look at is 6A Edenbrook Hill, which sold for $3.5 million May 31st. And this is really interesting to me because they had actually started about a year ago at a significantly higher price. This property is located pretty much right smack dab in Humber Valley, right around Royal York and Edenbridge Drive. It basically backs onto the golf course here, you can see. So very private property, very large. Quickly go through the photos here. I'm not sure if you can tell, but it's got the 3-car garage. You know, got the paved or cobblestone driveway up going to the front. In the interior, it's a mix of sort of 80s, 90s style tiling and some more modern features with the glass. I'd actually gone to the house myself in an agent's open house. It was an interesting property just because it had been modified numerous times over its ownership. And it was probably modified to how the owner needed more space and more bedrooms, but it did not have a very traditional flow in terms of how the house was laid out. And so I could tell for a lot of potential home buyers that were going to be going through the home, it felt a little awkward. But to me, this sale is rather noteworthy and remarkable just because of where it started and where it ended. I think at $3.5 million, I mean, it's hard to not see the value for this area code right here. Usually a lot of homes in this area will sell, you know, into the 5s, sometimes the 6 millions. And that is actually where this property had started over a year ago when they had first listed the property for sale. So you can see that it was first listed at 6.2. In April of 2025, and they had quickly kind of dropped it to 5.9. 6.2 is probably quite aspirational, and they had based it off of other sales that had happened in the neighborhood around that price point. And then eventually, you know, it had to drop down to under 4 to be able to move it. And so they had gone from 6.2 where they started. They had tried selling it in the 5s. And then eventually had dropped it, you know, quite well below under 5s before going into right around 4 million and agreeing to sell it at 3.5 million, which ultimately is the best price that they could have gotten for it. And the sellers clearly wanted to sell. But I think that this is really comment worthy because, you know, all properties are affected in this market. Even though the land value is probably there, ultimately, this market is end users, and the house being kind of having an unconventional layout with its distribution of space and rooms. It was attracting a value seeker that's probably going to invest some money into redoing some sections of the property and probably opening up some walls. Next one is 37 Lorraine Gardens, which sold for $4 million in July 10th. And this is a very comment-worthy property because it's very rare to see a property like this in Etobicoke. So this is a very private-looking home on a large 110 by 513 foot lot. And it's backing pretty much onto the Mimico Creek. And so you can kind of see here from the aerial footage, there are no neighbors here. That little stretch right there is actually the Mimico Creek. Very, very private backyard. And this was originally a custom build from 1992. You can see it's got all these steps going down towards the Mimico Creek. And it's got this lovely foliage. Let me see if I can find some more footage of the back here just to kind of give you a better view of that. Very rare to find a property like this. So there's the Mimico Creek. And you got this little bench here where if you want to contemplate life or anything like that, very beautiful setting. And this is noteworthy to me because you just rarely see a property like this, and yet it still took 63 days to sell on the market. And this home, I feel like it should have sold quicker than it did. But I kind of understand why it didn't sell as quick. Again, kind of going back to the fact that the market is full of end users who are looking for homes that are move-in ready that don't need any work. And certainly this home fits the fact that it is very livable, but it's also a custom build from 92, and it does have that vibe with, you got some old carpeting, some darker wood accents and wainscoting that is not contemporary to today's home buyers. And so even with the fabric couches and the older style pot lights, it does kind of, and of course the wallpaper, it does kind of have that older, more classic vibe. But, someone selling a 5,000 square foot home, the buyers of this aren't going to be a 60, 70-year-old home buyer that appreciates this kind of older, more classic style home. It's going to be a younger home buyer, maybe in their 40s or so, that's looking for something a bit more contemporary. And so it's in this awkward kind of phase where the home is certainly livable and it's certainly decent enough for most kind of conventional home buyers. But in this price point, it's going to be attracting someone that's looking for something a bit more modern and an end user. And even though that this is such a rare offering and that you never see properties of this size backing onto Mimico Creek, I mean, this is its location right here on Lorraine Gardens. And I'll do another aerial footage right here. You can see it, how private this little stretch of land is here. It was not, I guess, at a price point that was accessible enough for home buyers to be able to take advantage of that. And there just weren't enough people to act even at around 4.5. And so to me, that this is very comment worthy because I think that the final buyer for this property did get very, very good value. All right, and the last noteworthy property I have for us today is 14 North Drive, which sold for $5.2 million June 9th. And this was a 1.5 story, it's or we can call it a 2-story. It's a 2-story house on a 130 by 330 foot lot in Edenbridge. And for those that aren't in the know, here's where it's located. North Drive, this section of Edenbridge here is actually the most expensive area of Etobicoke, followed pretty closely by Edenbridge and then the Kingsway. And it's funny because like I said, the majority of end users, the majority of buyers in this market are end users. And when I saw this property come onto the market at 5.8, I couldn't help but scoff at it because you look at this house and sure, it's on a very large 130 by 330 foot lot. Beautiful looking lot, mature trees all around. I'm sure the lot is very beautiful and the house is cozy. But, when I saw this, I thought, who's going to pay over $5 million for this little, old house? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but at $5 million, I mean, I would have expected a new property at that price, regardless of lot size. And it shocked me just how quickly it sold. And obviously the buyer in this at this price point, they're paying for the land. But also just, the photos are mostly made up of the house itself, which to me is not really the main selling point. It's of course the lot. But again, I guess if someone is looking very closely to buy and to build in this area, and there aren't very many properties along North Drive that maybe back onto the creek, then when something pops up of a lot and size that they can build on, then they take advantage. And when someone sees something that they want, then they're going to pay the price that the sellers are asking for. And so to me, that is why this last property is noteworthy. All right, everyone, that's it for me this month. Well, I hope this video was helpful in providing some context of some recent sales that have happened in the last 30 days or so in the west end of Toronto here in Etobicoke. Once again, my name is Jonathan Lee. I'm a real estate agent based in Toronto. And if you'd like to connect, you'd like some help in navigating the market this upcoming fall, I'd be happy to connect with you. You can reach me using the contact information below this video in the description. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the summer, and I will see you guys next month. Cheers.